Hello everybody, welcome back to the Burrow here on the Tegan Mission channel. I am Tegan Musin, a bubblegum mouse VTuber, or bubblegum mouse VTuber. And I'm trying to sort out a couple of bits, but my PC is going slowly, apparently. So I'm just going to try and make it all... We got that up. Now we can get actually into the game. Now that it's actually on screen, we can now get it all working. How is everyone today? Hopefully you are all doing well. So what I normally do on my Magic the Gathering streams is I save up a load of packs so that I can open them all for you all. And normally I have a bunch of coins and a bunch of gems built up, and then I've got loads of like wild cards that we can build a deck with whatever new set we're doing. I definitely want to build a deck with the new Lorwyn cards because they are very cool. Hopefully I'll open some stuff that I can make a deck with. I did miss out on the pre-release on Arena. I didn't manage to stream that for you all because it happened like last month. Like a few weeks ago at the very least. And my schedule went all over the place and I ended up like middle of D&D week or something like that. I was prepping to do other things and it ended up not happening. So I'm getting late to showing you all Lorwyn Eclipsed. The Lorwyn set itself, the new Lorwyn set, is revisiting an old classic Magic the Gathering plane called Lorwyn. The plane itself, lore-wise, has been split into effectively daytime and nighttime. It's like a virtuous side and a malicious side of the plane itself. The theming for the plane is all sort of like Celtic folklore is the best way to kind of represent it. So it's like shapeshifters and giants and like merrows and little like pixies and piskies and that sort of stuff. It is a tribal set, or a kindred set, I should now be saying. I'm never going to get used to doing that though, unfortunately, which is bad. It is a kindred set, which basically means that it focuses on creature types. So the original set was focused around, I want to say 5 creature types. You had you had giants and you had Kithkin predominantly in white. You had merfolk in blue. You had fairies in black, fairies in black, goblins in red, and elves in green. Then when you went to more in depth with it all, it was a block of 4 sets, because they kind of did it in like 2 set pieces, 2 to represent the daytime side, the virtuous side of the plane, and 2 to represent the malicious or nighttime side of the plane. And the first 2 sets being Lorwyn, of which the plane itself is named Lorwyn, and Morningtide kind of went into all of this. And then the other 2, where it was Shadowmoor and Eventide, went into more of the mechanics of like how the plane functions, and like it still did a lot of like kindred stuff. It was still a kindred focused set, or a set of kindred focused block, I should say. There was blocks at that time. And it's sort of like the plane itself has a weird mechanic built around it where daytime and nighttime are like fixed states of being, in that it was like a wave of nighttime would roll across the plane, and then a wave of daytime would roll across the plane. Which would, I can't remember the lore 100%, but it kind of broke down into the fairy queen, called Una, was like, I don't like when it becomes daytime, so I'm going to make our area nighttime forever. And so fiddled with what's called the Great Aurora, which was the thing that kind of kept the day and nighttime moving. I think that's how it worked. my Lorwyn lore knowledge is a bit spotty because I haven't like looked into it for a long time. I didn't with the new set because they've changed it all. The lore has moved forwards from this, and now a lot of this is kind of just like history of the plane. But yeah, kind of fixed nighttime and daytime where they were, but the way that night and day affects the inhabitants of Lorwyn is weird. So you can be a regular person, or a regular whatever race you are, like a merfolk or an elf or a kithkin or a giant or a tree folk or a fairy or a goblin or a... I think that's the main tribes of the main kindred groups of the plane of Lorwyn. I don't think I've missed any. But yeah, you could be one of those races and just going about your daily life quite literally in the morning tide, daytime of the plane, and then when nighttime rolls around, your personality flips and you effectively have a split personality of your virtuous side and your malicious, chaotic side. And so when you're in daytime, your virtuous side takes control and you are a good individual, a virtuous individual. I hate using the terms good and bad to represent this duality, but that's kind of how it was represented to us, of like, you're a virtuous, courageous individual when you are in daytime. And then when you are in nighttime, when you are in Shadowmoor, as opposed to Lorwyn, you become this sort of malicious, greedy, covetous version of yourself. More recently, I think, because they never really touched on this kind of how it works, but with Lorwyn Eclipsed, they've kind of gone back and like brushed up the lore a little bit and cleaned out a lot, and cleaned up a lot. How it works is it's effectively you have two personalities and they each have their own sets of memories. So when you pass from daytime to nighttime on the plane of Lorwyn, if you're an inhabitant of Lorwyn, when you pass from daytime to nighttime, you flip personality and the other personality is then like, oh, we're back in nighttime again. I'm glad we're back in nighttime because this is where I live, this is where I survive. And then when they go back into daytime, the Lorwyn virtuous personality comes forward and goes, oh, good, I'm back in daytime because this is where I live, this is where I exist. So there's also this like tension of between the Lorwyn and the Shadowmoor versions of yourself, this like duality of personality, which is an interesting concept of like, effectively originally when it was brushed on, it was kind of every individual has good and bad. Every individual can be malicious and can be virtuous. And this is a antithesis of you are both. But both is not you, if that makes sense. The more recent lore for Lorwyn is that a bunch of kids from Strixhaven, which is a different plane that we'll be going back to at some point this year, in fact, with the next set. The next set that come out is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. The set after that is Secrets of Strixhaven, and we'll be going back to Strixhaven. And this is the sort of precursor to that story arc that we've now entered. But a group of students kind of fall into Lorwyn by accident through an omen path. I've kind of mentioned those in the past. They are like portals between planes of existence, but they fall through an omen path by accident out on a school trip and end up in Lorwyn, the good side, the virtuous side, while everything is still fixed in place. Post Phyrexian invasion, so there's still a lot of like, people are a little bit in disarray of just like, we've been invaded by these horrible monsters, but we're kind of putting our lives back together, so we're all moving on. And they find the moon, I won't say they find the moon imprisoned, because now we have representations of the sun and moon as a flip card in the set. I can't remember the name of it, but it is effectively a big elemental that represents, like, its head is the sun, and on the flip side its head is like a crescent moon. And they free it from its trap that Una held it in, its like magical prison. And that then allows daytime and nighttime to continue going, as they always used to. But they kind of do this accidentally and they don't really mean to, and then a bunch of shenanigans happen, and that's kind of the Lorwyn story. And they interact with a lot of like classic characters from the old Lorwyn block, some who are very long-lived races, like some of the elves, some of the elementals, stuff like that. A lot of long-lived races. Like, if you can see the image that keeps popping up, this is Aisling, who has been in every Lorwyn set in different iterations. They are an elemental. My brain is being like, I don't remember the ins and outs of the entire story that came with the Eclipsed set, but it is very good, and I recommend that you read it or listen to it on YouTube, because they do audio versions of the Magic story now, which is fantastic. And I do need to actually get around to listening to the Lorwyn Eclipsed story, because I very much haven't had time. But yes, so that's kind of where the lore got to. Noting back to the mechanical side of the set, it is a kindred set, but all of the kindred races, classes, creature types, whatever you want to call it, are all primarily dual coloured. So like Kithkin that I mentioned earlier are green and white. So while they are predominantly white, and a lot of the Kithkin in the original set were mono white cards, they are actually green-white for the most part in this new set. And there were some green Kithkin in the old sets, and there were also some red and blue splashes of Kithkin in the old sets as well, but we'll get to that. That's not really relevant for the set we're playing. Or like the Merrow, the merfolk, while predominantly blue, also have white in their colour pie. We then also have the fairies, who are blue-black. We have the goblins, who are black-red. We have the elves, who are black-green. We then have the elementals that are blue-red. We have the tree folk, who are black-white, I want to say. But I do remember them predominantly being green as well. So I'm like, I don't really know where they fit in. We have giants, who are red-white. We have... what else do we have? We're missing a bunch of them, aren't we? Oh god, brain. There are some other creature types. We have changelings as well. This weird jelly moose that you can see is a changeling. The changelings in this world look like jelly creatures. They can morph their shape into the shapes of other things, but they keep those like big yellow eyes, and they keep their kind of jelly structure when they're trying to be living objects. Just because they don't fully understand how living objects function. So they're like, I can become a tree with eyes and look like a tree, but when I want to become, say, a moose, I turn into a jelly moose that looks like I'm made of... Yeah, when I become a goblin, I become a jelly goblin with the yellow eyes. But they're not malicious at all. Even when in Shadowmoor, they are not malicious creatures in the slightest. So the inhabitants of the wild just kind of are like, okay, we're good, you carry on. You keep being you. We'll just accept the fact that you're here. And even like the actual animals, like if that jelly moose went and lived with a family of mooses and was just like, I'm also a moose, they'd be like, okay, carry on. You're fine. We'll just also help you out if we need to. Which is quite funny. I like that as just like a... Shapeshifters in Celtic lore are like, oh, mischievous tricksters, and in this they're just like goofy guys who are just like, I'm also here, hi. Anyway, now that I've done like a weird spin deep dive on the lore, I'm going to jump into the Lorwyn Eclipsed Limited. We do have a free draft token and 24,000 coins, which should be enough to do 2 drafts. Looking at my quests, my daily quests, I need to defeat 15 of my opponent's creatures, play blue,